Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the FIP Pharmacy Technician Symposium. Our first session today is Optimizing the Pharmacy Support Workforce with Integrated Digital Health Technologies. We're going to start today's session by introducing our moderators and making a few announcements, and then we have a number of excellent speakers to share their expertise with you today. So Christina Durinck is the president of the European Association of Pharmacy Technicians and former president of the Danish Association of Pharmaconomists. Christina has been part of the development of the pharmacy technician and support workforce over the last several years and has been a member of the planning and host committee for the Pharmacy Technician Symposium since 2014. Christina, I'm happy to have you here with me today.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm honored to introduce Ryan Burke. Ryan is the Director of Professional Affairs at the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board, where he served as a liaison to state and national pharmacy associations, state boards of pharmacy, and pharmacy technicians organizations. Before joining the PTCB in August 2018, Ryan worked at the American Pharmacists Association in practice and professional affairs and governance roles. He also has experience working as a PTCB certified pharmacy technician at Walgreens. Ryan earned his Doctor of Pharmacy from the University of Louisiana at Monroe College of Pharmacy and completed a postgraduate executive residency program in association management and leadership with the AP8SAFE Foundation. I'm honored to be with you here today, Ryan, and I'm so excited about the program.
Thank you, Christina. So a few announcements before we get started. This webinar is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and the recording will be available after the event on the FIP website, fip.org. We encourage you to ask questions using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And our panelists will be around to answer your questions after all of the presentations conclude today. You're welcome to send any feedback to webinars@fip.org. And if you're not already a member, we strongly encourage you to think about joining, and you can see the link there if you're interested in learning more about FIP membership. So we've already gone through introductions. Our first presentation will be about the FIP Pharmaceutical Technology Forum, followed by information about navigating this opportunity for technicians in Canada and the United States. Then we'll hear from Peter about optimizing the support workforce using digital health technology. And then we'll hear from a pharmacist and pharmacy technician team about working together in the area of digital health. And as I said, we'll have plenty of time at the end for your questions. And so as you think of questions, please feel free to submit those in the Q&A box. These are our learning objectives for today. So after the webinar, we hope that you'll recognize emerging trends in digital health technologies. You'll identify tools that aid in the delivery of patient care and describe the role of pharmacy technicians and other members of the support workforce in digital health. So with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Jacqueline Surugue. Jacqueline is the chair of the FIP Pharmaceutical Technology Forum and was elected vice president of FIP in 2017. She has held several international prominent positions: president of FIP Hospital Section, president of the European Association of Hospital Pharmacists, co-founder and co-chair of IHE Europe and IHE Pharmacy, member of E-Stakeholders Group at the EU Commission. On the national level, Jacqueline is a member of the National Council and member of the Hospital Sections Bureau at the French Order of Pharmacists, and also a lecturer at the Pharmacy University of Angers. Her background in hospital pharmacy, and she works at Center Hospital in New York, France. Jacqueline has also received a number of high honors and awards from various organizations in the pharmacy profession. Jacqueline, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Ryan, for this nice introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today for this Pharmacy Technician Symposium on Digital Matters. I have always thought that your profession, technicians, is a very important profession for pharmacy. You are as I've always said, the right arm of pharmacists, and I have always cherished your profession all over my career. I'm going to try to present to you what we do in the technology forum that I have the honor to chair within FIP. In the next slide, you will see what this technology forum is composed of. First of all, it was launched in May 2019, so you see it's quite a young constituency of FIP. We have 43 officers. Those 43 officers are pharmacists, pharmaceutical scientists, and pharmacy educators within FIP membership with expertise or special interest in technology. And in our forum, we exchange our views. We try to identify projects with digital added value, new trends, new technology, new logistic models, and we try to facilitate integration and ownership of digital developments in healthcare daily practice. When we can, we try to provide guidance. And this concerns not only e-health and m-health. I wanted to show you how this came as an implementation. Next slide. You certainly heard about FIP development goals. FIP has identified several goals of developments for the association. 21 goals were identified, which are here in this diagram. So you see you have, for instance, development goals on non-communicable diseases, on antibiotic resistance, and so on, you know, various topics. And digital health is one of them. It is goal number 20. It's important to understand that because every goal has been split in several directions, let us say. One is workforce and education. The other one is practice. So practice is really what we do in our daily job as pharmacists, while workforce is more on the education and training point of view. And the third topic is science. So we have part of digital, in digital health, we have, of course, science included. So these are the aspects we try to cover in our forum. And all this is aligned with the One FIP strategy, which is so dear for our president. Next. So I have tried to give you some of the most important activities that we have in our forum. And if you go on the website, the major activity you will see is webinars. So if you go through webinars, and I have put here the link to see all those webinars, you will see quite a number of webinars where our forum has been involved. Of course, I have put an extract here for instance, the launch of our development goal number 20, which was done some time ago. But we had also recently webinars. For instance, in August, we have a webinar in self-care in the digital age with representatives from our forum. We have very recently a webinar on virtual reality with two very interesting experiences from Finland and France, virtual reality in immersive environment. Here we had webinars that we co-moderate with sections, one here with the hospital pharmacy section, and here with the community pharmacy section with dealing with technology and new logistics. So webinars is an important part of our activities, and it's all about education as well. So in the next slide, you will see another activity we have, which is a very important one. It's a collaborate to reports. So in 2019, we had this report on, we collaborated with this report on mHealth that maybe you have had the opportunity to go through. And very recently, at the beginning of the year, we collaborated in this report on digital health in pharmacy education. That was a key report, very important report. There was a survey first before the report. And the outcome of the report is that we will have a global competency framework for digital health in pharmacy education. This topic will be held by the academic section and also FitEd. And we also consider having masterclasses on technology for academics. This was the webinar launching this important report. Another activity on top of this is in the next slide. We have been asked to collaborate for statements. There is a statement that we have been we have worked on collaboration with the community pharmacy section. It was a position statement on emerging technology and pharmacy practice. This was a policy statement which was decided just after the Amazon position, related to delivering drugs. And most importantly, this policy statement on digital health, which has been approved by the Council in September last month. And this statement has been written by the FIP Technology Forum. Let me highlight in the following slides the major ideas of these statements. So this statement is divided in two parts. First, there is a background. The background is presenting the situation nowadays, the future ahead of us. We have also insisted that the pharmacy are a resourceful workforce to help in this statement, and the need of education for pharmacists and their teams. And when we say their teams, of course, technicians are included, to upskill our digital knowledge. And we had also a special emphasis on interoperability, which is a key concept for the future. The second part of the statement is recommendations. And we have put recommendations for 5 target groups. First, government. Second, member organizations of FIP. Third, academic institutions of FIP. Fourth, pharmacists. And fifth, and not the least, it is for FIP itself. And you have here the number of recommendations. So just some quick words on the recommendations. In the next slide, you will see we have put a special emphasis of interoperability. Interoperability is a major issue if we want softwares to communicate in each other. So it allows softwares to exchange information between themselves and to be able to use the information they have exchanged. So it's a very important topic. As I say, what we need in our profession is software, plug and play software, just like little kids, games. It's exactly the same. And we are very, very far from this, I'll tell you, especially in our hospitals, but I think in all domains of pharmacy. So this was a key recommendation, number 1, for all the target groups. We also have a special emphasis on the need for digital competencies for pharmacists, pharmacist teams, and of course technicians, but all other healthcare professionals. And we have put that in other key concepts all along the document. We have also included data protection, data privacy, confidentiality, ethics, assets, equity, Sharing is important for us. In this paragraph, we made emphasis on developing countries. And of course, we have promoted a multi-professional collaboration with other healthcare professionals, but also healthcare stakeholders, included IT specialists. Okay, some other activities in our forum. On the next slide, we want to make a technology resource center within FIP that could be on FIP website. So this resource center should answer the question, is there a digital solution for what I am doing at present? It should be something very pragmatic, very practical. So it should look like a list of use cases and digital solutions that exist for each little bit of scenario on our daily practice. So digital solutions that would make our tasks easier, faster, and of course, with increased safety. This is really an added value for all pharmacists all over the world. So it's a difficult task to make such a list, and we are doing it at present. I think it's a very promising development, and it is still under construction. Then I will end, and this will be my last slide. What I want to tell you is that in all this, collaboration is key. Collaboration between the pharmacist and his teams and technicians, of course, but also within FIP constituencies, the FIP sections, the forum, BPS, BPP, and also the Global Pharmacy Observatory. I don't know if you have been aware of what the Global Pharmacy Observatory is doing. It's important. The Global Pharmacy of the GPO, as we say it in FIP, is going to make surveys, and this would allow to have a state of art of the digital status within the world. It is very important to be able to measure that. But also collaboration is key with other bodies and organizations outside FIP. And here is a political role of FIP. So we should lobby and advocate with the WHO, with the World Health Professional Alliance, with the United Nations, and all international healthcare professional organizations, international digital health solution consortia, also patients association. We must not forget the patients and all other relevant international stakeholders. So I will stop here. I think I have given you some major trends, what we are doing in our forum. Thank you very much.
Jacqueline, thank you very much for that excellent presentation. It's clear that the Pharmaceutical Technology Forum has been very busy over the last few years, and I'm sure that all of our attendees took something away from your presentation, and will hopefully look for some ways to get involved as well.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vijay Sarma. Vijay has been a licensed pharmacist in Canada for 18 years. During his tenure, Vijay has explored regional and national leadership roles in large retail chains, has been a pharmacy owner, and has been a consultant for pharmacy startups. In his current role as VP of Pharmacy Marketing at McCann Health, he brings extensive pharmacy program development, strategy, and leadership experience to drive effective health communications to pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, and other health professionals globally. Vijay, thank you for being here today.
So happy to be here, Ryan. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you, Jacqueline, for that overview of the tremendous amount of work that's being done by FIP. So what I wanted to do for the next couple of minutes is kind of share some thoughts around what digital health technology looks like across the North American experience, meaning Canada and the US. And really the way I've formatted this section is across the pharmacy team. It's not really a pharmacist alone or the pharmacy technician alone. It's the team effort that has made some of this, will make some of this possible in the pharmacy space in terms of incorporating or integrating digital health solutions. So on the next slide, I'm going to be kind of working through or sharing with you some thoughts and a broad overview of the kinds of variety of technology that's available now. And you might have read about this or seen this in some places, or even experienced it in your own markets in some way, shape, or form. But realistically, when we're looking at the broad number of technologies, they vary from sensors, which could be watches that everyone's wearing now, collecting information, or sensors in the body, even ingestible capsules that sense things within the body. So, or wearables like clothing, for example. Mobile apps, we've seen so many examples of those things come out, many of which are used for a period, but maybe not continue to be used. But more recently, what's happened is the FDA, the governing body in the US for products, approving products, has approved mobile apps as medical devices or for medical purposes. So that's a big move in terms of accepting digital health technologies in the medical space. And then if you move on, you'll see that telehealth, as you know from COVID, the COVID experience, we've had previous symposia where we've talked about how telehealth has exploded. In some places, it's exploded or expanded by 300-fold, giving access to people in ways that they didn't have before for medical care. And then artificial intelligence and machine learning is a continuing, rapidly evolving kind of opportunity for all the other devices that are produced in this tech space, because it's not just about the devices themselves, it's all the information and data coming out of them that needs to be integrated and also be able to be analyzed somehow in the end for the end users, whether it be a pharmacist, a pharmacy technician, or other health professionals. Voice assistants obviously are things that have been there for a little while now with Alexa and other platforms. They are being used, especially for those who have difficulty getting up or difficulty accessing devices. This will be a growing space to watch. Last but not least is robotics and automation that pharmacy's been using for some time in terms of automating, managing product delivery, etc. But the fact is that this combined with some of the other technologies will provide time to the pharmacists and pharmacy teams to be able to deliver patient care. The real crux of it, though, it's not about one technology. It's about the convergence of all of these coming together to enable us to work in smarter and better ways. We can better understand the needs of patients through this data. And since it's coming from so many places, I think as pharmacists and pharmacy technicians, we need to understand how to use that data at the right moment, at the right time. And that's something that will evolve over time. On the next slide, I'll be working through just what the market looks like right now in Canada, for example. A study that was done not too long ago, a few months ago in Canada, suggested that 72% of people in Canada or Canadians receive medical advice from a healthcare provider by telephone, which is not surprising, especially through the pandemic. 58% have made appointments through some sort of electronic means, and 42%, not quite half, but getting there, access websites, mobile applications, and interactive tools and services that are really designed to support the health system in some way, shape, or form. But there's barriers to this engagement. And many patients don't have enough information about it, almost a quarter of them, and almost 20% or just over 20% of say that their health professional, their doctor in particular, doesn't offer these services. And other barriers to consider here is that, a lot of these devices that people are using don't last through 24 hours. They need to be charged at some point, so they can't collect data for the full 24 hours. And number two, social determinant of health now is a lack of access, to Wi-Fi. Just being able to access, an internet in some place where you are, how you are, and broadly speaking across the full population is not something that happens everywhere. So it is something that I think governments and including in Canada and the US are working to make available to the full population. On the next slide, what I'm going to be working through is just this idea that, how respondents receive digital health and where pharmacy has an opportunity. If you look at how they receive it now, 72% of people say that they receive it through their family doctor, and only 23% say they receive some sort of digital health solution through their pharmacy. So some may look at this and say they're disappointed. It's a disappointing result. But the way I look at this is it's a huge opportunity for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians to kind of take a front and center role as a community-based, accessible healthcare to provide these services and actually educate people on how to use digital health for their benefit. So in the next slide, I'm going to be looking at how these technologies actually sit in the market right now and a few examples. If we look at software as medicine, there have been many different types of software that have come to the forefront. One is for example, in this case, for pain management and physiotherapy, delivered through an app, through a series of questions and a series of answers that are given to people to self-diagnose, for example. But there are other types of software that are designed for kind of cloud-based platforms that deliver information through, for example, smart inhalers to manage asthma. And asthma being such a big issue in the world today, including as well as COPD, these smart inhalers will actually enhance the way health professionals can understand how people use their devices and better advise them as to how to improve their health. And pharmacists and pharmacy techs in particular can help educate people on how to integrate these kinds of technologies into their life. If you look at remote monitoring and diagnostics, you'll see that there's so many types of remote monitoring and diagnostic devices these days. Blood monitoring cuffs have been there for a while, but they're getting smart and collecting data and feeding it into other systems where health professionals can access them. And this also includes blood glucose monitoring devices. Now, how we use this data and when we use this data, there are a few examples, but it's growing in number. There's certainly more health professionals looking to access this kind of data to better help their patients. I've talked about telehealth already, but really what telehealth does is it allows us to now use these diagnostic devices, have people test themselves remotely, and use that data in office or at the pharmacy. And I've seen a few examples in the pharmacy that I work at where people have actually shared their, for example, blood glucometer data in a dashboard and they've given access to the pharmacist to see how they're controlling their and managing their condition. The other area that I wanted to quickly talk about is adherence tools, and that's a big area for pharmacy to play a role in. Smart pill bottles, where there's packaging that lights up and tells you which section to pull tablets out of, and it's alerting patients to take their medications. These are things that pharmacists can definitely play, pharmacists and pharmacy assistants can definitely play a role in trying to offer their patients and help them to understand where to use them. On the next slide, I just wanted to give you a few examples, quick examples of simple technologies that have been trying to be used more broadly across the market. In Canada, there's a technology called Prescribe IT. So 97% of prescriptions are still communicated from doctor to pharmacist via fax, phone, or paper. And so you can imagine there's a sincere interest in trying to more broadly make this available through other methods and electronic methods. Now, via transferring to these electronic methods, what it's going to really do is help to, for example, two important things is integrate with public health formularies, but number two is also reduce potential for fraud and abuse, especially where narcotics and other controlled substances are concerned. Even in Canada, we're still a little bit behind in using these kinds of electronic technologies. In the US, they have been moving these forward quite quickly. On the next slide, I'll give you another example of things that are kind of more at the forefront for pharmacy technicians, for example. There's a point of care testing certificate that's available now in the US where technicians are able to get certified in how to read and understand diagnostic testing. And this is a big move because this is going to allow technicians now to play a much more front and center role in relaying information and educating patients on how to read their tests, etc. As these new technologies and diagnostic tools come out, I think it's going to be an exciting time for pharmacy techs to play a role. The next slide, I just wanted to also just summarize for everyone where the opportunity really does lie for the pharmacy teams. And this is really about a combined effort on the pharmacy side. I think pharmacists and their technicians can find themselves serving to contribute in the health and wellness space by supporting treatment optimization. And what that means is they can serve, especially for digital health technologies, as coaches, translators for patients in the digital space. They can help patients better access the data and allow them to remotely monitor themselves. They can assist with setting up software and devices for them. They can engage with patients via these hybrid care models across different platforms, whether it's hospital or community, and provide that seamless care experience for people. And then finally, they can match individuals with the right medications and digital companions that are going to enhance those medications and the ability for those medications to be used. So there's so many different ways in which pharmacists and pharmacy technicians can play a role. And we're starting to see these things in pockets across North America and across other global markets. But certainly the US and Canada have been at the forefront of some of these, some of the movement and approval of these technologies for use in standard healthcare. With that, I'll leave you with the next speaker.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to welcome our next speaker. Peter Karegwa Mwangi is from Kenya and is a registered pharmaceutical technologist by Pharmacy and Poisons Board in Kenya. He holds a diploma in pharmaceutical technology from Mount Kenya University and a bachelor's degree in finance and management science from Strathmore University, also in Kenya. He's an honorable member of the Kenya Pharmaceutical Association, KPA, and he's currently serving as the national chairman of Kenya National Union of Pharmaceutical Technologists. Peter, it's a great pleasure to have you here today, and we're looking very forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And I'm happy I'll be taking you through the optimization of the pharmacy support workforce with integrated digital health technologies. Next slide, please. When I was coming about with this presentation, I wanted to know what I take you through what are the impacts that we can have in our pharmacy practice through our digital optimization. And part of the question that I thought it was good to ask so that we know where we are coming from is our normal life, how would it be without computers, laptops, tablets, smartphones, and the rest? And that's exactly the great impact that is being brought about by the digital technologies in our health practice or in our pharmacy practice specifically. Next slide, please. I thought it's very important that we know where we are coming from and maybe where we are so that we can focus on the trends that are coming on. And it's a very great question that we should ask ourselves why we need digital health technologies in our pharmacy practice. And part of it is like we need to secure timely and storage of data, which of course is key. If in your pharmacy practice you are not considering how you will keep patient records, stock, and staff records, you are failing on that side. It's very important that when you're storing your data, it should be secure and also it should be timely during the point of putting it or storing it and also for retrieval or accessing it. Digital also brings ourselves to the efficiency and cost-effective service care. Of course, this comes to the level and how we want to serve our patients. We want the services that our patients or our clients need now. They want it right now, there and there. If it's calling or it's through a website, through a mail, the patient wants to to get that information there and there. And it's very important that the responsiveness that we are getting or we are giving to our clients should be efficient and cost effective and also timely. And of course, the efficiency increases the confidence and the trust to our clients, but also you are sure on the certainty because you are giving the collector data or the information. Digital information also, digital technologies also bring us our the touch points. Of course, we have been lagging behind on matters of health, how we are trying to serve or the level of services that we are giving to our clients, who happens maybe to the patients or the relatives or all those people who want information from us. It's great that we should consider the touch point. The touch point is where the patient can contact us. Where is it and how reliable it is? Also, of course, the profits increase and waste and reduction of the wastage. Of course, in our practice, maybe we want the profitability without necessarily increasing the burden to the patients. What the level of profit increase, or how can we embrace the technology so that we achieve that? The last one is information monitoring and collection and analysis. Of course, like I said, we want somewhere that we can keep our information in a secure and timely place that we can retrieve it as urgent as possible. Of course, moving forward as responsible practitioners, we need to know that going with the way technology and the world is taking us, our clients have information that maybe need to be updated or demystified. They're coming to you with some information, and it's very important that you have clear places that you are storing your data or the information that you are keeping updating yourself. This digital can play a key role in achieving this. Next slide, please. These are the emerging trends in digital health technologies, and I think there is need to empower the patient through technology. Of course, we have noted that patient or our clients, be it the patient or the relative, are trying to take charge of their health. Earlier, before, they were coming to the healthcare provider for services. But in the new trend, we are seeing like patients want to take charge of their health, and I think with our technology improvements, we have a key responsibility to try and empower them. Of course, this is with the stocking of the tools maybe that they need and advising them what they need. Of course, we need to be in front of the patient, and the services that you are labeling should be the key advisors on which are relevant to them and which one are correct and right to use. Of course, even as they are seeking solutions from us, we have noted there are trends that patients themselves are coming up with their own solutions. Of course, as a pharmacy practitioners, we need to be key and be updating ourselves, lest we be left behind by the patients. So that's a key trend that we have noted that even the patients may be due to the need or the pain or the problems that themselves or their relatives are going through, themselves they are trying to come up with solutions. And maybe also the test kits, or you have seen the patients earlier before, the patients who are coming for maybe the blood pressure check, their blood sugar check, even their HIV check. All these things they were coming at their facility. Right now, what they need is information from you on how you can empower them and guide them how to go about it. Second, we have seen the enhanced digitization and optimization of patient care and improved convenience, health insights, and cost saving. Like my previous presenter have talked about, we are seeing a lot of patients and even the relatives and even ourselves going for health app, refill reminder, even the compliance tracer, and also softwares. We need to update ourselves and be in the forefront, trying to guide ourselves and even those who we serve, and including the people who are coming up with those ideas on these apps and refill reminders and the compliance tracers and the softwares and the role that they are playing. Of course, they'll have a very big impact on our practice, and it's a good thing that we try and embrace them and we be in the forefront trying to guide where we are headed. Of course, the other one is augmented and virtual reality. This one we cannot run away from it. Patient can easily evaluate their conditions and medicine. They can even lead to more legal tussles. Of course, patients right now we are seeing that they've been knowing they have come to be informed about their rights most. We have seen a lot of C4 engagement, where we as pharmaceutical practitioners, we need to update ourselves. Is it on legal matters? What digital empowerment can digital technologies bring to us, and how can we be able to protect ourselves or prevent ourselves from going that route? And maybe if it's a documentation, how can we update ourselves? Because for example, the patient might be more digitally empowered than ourselves, and that can be an issue. So these are trends that we are noted. And of course, the last one, we have seen customized medication, prescriptions, and services. Patients moving forward like in the normal market, where they want their services so unique to themselves. The services that we are going to be giving to patients are looking they look more for individualized setup, and we need to consider that. Earlier, before, maybe from where I practice, we have been doing a mass practicing where if you think of a certain condition or a setup that you are bringing to serve your clients, you are thinking it on a level of a public or many individuals or many patients. We are noted a trend where the services that you will be rendering, they'll be a little bit more customized, and where there is that client who needs his individualized, because he or she has a lot of information that we need to know how to serve them better individually. We have seen even printout drugs, where from where I practice, that thing has been only like where you serve yourself coffee. And I'm seeing like in the new technology, we'll be having where patients will be attending facilities and they will be serving themselves in a printout, in a drug printout. So that's key trend, and we need to update ourselves about it. Next slide, please. These are part of the things that I thought is very important to have digital tools that aid in delivery of patient care. Of course, it's our noble responsibility that, and we have a responsibility to guide those who are coming up with the technology, that all these things that we are doing, we are the custodian, and we should safeguard the interests of the patient and the clients, because we know better what digital technology can do and the what it can do to us or to the patient. So of course, we have a responsibility to make sure that whatever we are guiding, it should be so patient care minded, and that's our key responsibility, to guard and safeguard the patient health. Of course, these are the tools that I think we should think of. These are self-care kits, like test kits and information of use. Of course, like we have said, the trend the way it's showing us that patients will be taking care of their health more often than it has been. Of course, we need pharmacy. So, sorry for that. In the first point is like we need to stop this and also be sure that we are giving patients this information and guiding them how to use them. Of course, moving forward, we might be able to be not only charging the goods or the whatever we are serving, but also the services like the information of how to use. We can set up on how we can be guiding patients and maybe their relatives on how to use these self kits. Also, we have pharmacy diversified software. Of course, like we have been challenged by the patients and the clients and the relatives that themselves, they are already empowering themselves with the digital technology. It's our responsibility that we diversify our kits and our tools in where we practice. So of course, we not only need softwares, but we need diversified so that we be at par with the technology and the trend that are taking us. Of course, other things are medical apps. You might not need them, but of course, the patient are already using them. It's your responsibility to use them and to have them so that you not only become a guider to them what is best suited, because the apps are becoming so many, and of course, you'll be playing a key role to guide them on which one to drop, on which one to which are at par. Also, these are key things. Maybe they look maybe more normal, but is very important. The digital computers, the laptops, and of course, like my presenter have talked about, the prescriptions that we have been having, we have seen like the new trends, we might be using the barcode readers. Of course, you need to invest in this. Also, we have technological empowered team. Of course, all these things are the way we need to empower our team. If you're a pharmacy practice, of course, there is no time to lag behind. We need to empower ourselves and our team so that the services that our patients and the clients and the relatives that they expect from us, it should be digitally empowered. Also, we have reminder and integrated tools with our regulator. Of course, giving that I have said, for the patients that the patients have more information, and we need to update ourselves. And also for this one, for regulator, we need to know that the pharmacy practice is a regulated industry, and of course we need to know how to play and embrace digital technology so that we don't find ourselves in a way that is not supported by our regulator. So of course we need to remember the accountability and the appropriateness of the care, and of course the prescription safety, future reference and retrieval. Like I've said, we might see ourselves having more legal tassels. So of course you need to know that you are digital. You should embrace your digital so that you'll be at par with your regulator, but also in case of any question or anything that comes in the near future, you can actually be able to protect yourself. Next slide, please. So, what's our role of pharmacy technicians in digital technology? Of course, like I've tried to talk about, is like we need to assure compliance. Like I've said, that pharma industry is a regulated industry. So you need to consider so many things: confidentiality, safety, security of the information, quality, and of course, the regulation where you are practicing. So we need to guide the digital technology. We have a responsibility that we need to guide the digital technology on matters of compliance. Also, we need to consider, we have a responsibility to consider the extent and the level of data sharing with the patient. Of course, they might demand more from you, but you have a responsibility. You need to know which information they need and what information you need and how maybe you can break it for themselves. because you don't you're not preparing these patients to go and practice. So you need to know what is important to them and relevant to them, so that you can empower the patient, but of course putting yourself at a regulatory track. Of course, another one is partnership and improved coordination with other healthcare expertise, and of course even the software's developers. We need to grow ourselves with asking ourselves what's in the digital setup and what is happening. And of course, our impact is needed there to advise on what is happening and maybe what we can guide, maybe how we can guide on compliance, how we can guide on doing it in the right way. And maybe the most key important thing is regulation, and also protecting the patient's health. That's our key responsibility. The digital, those who are developing those softwares might not, they might develop key digital tools, but of course they might not be so good for the patient or the client or the clients or the relatives that you are serving. Of course, we need regular and constant digital updates and team empowerment. Like I said, we have scattered information that needs to be demystified and updated. So of course, you need to know how to keep updating and empowering our team. Also, we need to stock and familiarize ourselves with the self-care tools and technologies, source of digital technology. Of course, considering that we are custodian of health at the side of the drugs, we need not to let it all of it to those IT or those who are the app and the whatever developers. Of course, too, we need to take charge, and also we need to maybe, like I've said, we need to increase and improve our collaboration so that we can be the route where the patients are accessing this. You can imagine if a patient wants a certain app, we need to set ourselves in a key area where we should guard that space to ourselves, and the patient should feel that the most right or safest place you can get quality digital empowerment is from our pharmacies and our setups. Else we shall be letting our patients and our clients and those who seek our services to the digital, those who are developing, or the IT guys. That's key, and that's what of course the last one is we need to think of specialization. I'm seeing a trend where in the near future we are not only welcoming the technology people or the IT people to our side of practice, but also ourselves, we are specializing ourselves to that. I would want to see a lot of pharmacists and pharmaceutical technicians who are already embracing themselves with technology, because I think they can be the best guider on how the digital is taking us. We need to take charge of that. That's a key role that we need to play. And of course, we need to specialize even on matters of information. I would wish if we are seeking this digital empowerment, we be seeking it from our colleagues who have practiced and are giving out great ideas, and maybe they can even coach us on how we can empower ourselves. So lastly, key thing, and I would wish to stamp on this, that technology and of course digital technology should be more focused on interventions that provide optimal patient-centered care services. We should control ourselves and guide ourselves that even if we want to embrace a lot of technology and digital optimization, the key person here, or the key value that we are bringing in our practice, is the patient. So of course, this is a responsibility that we are not only guiding those who are bringing technology to us. But of course, we should guide the technology that's being brought to us to be more patient focused. We should not take more time thinking about the technology that we forget the patient care, the emotions, of course, the emotions that you are giving to the patient, the attention. All these things cannot, some cannot be achieved through digital technology. And of course, this is key. We need to guide ourselves on that. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for a very interesting presentation. I already noted that there's a few questions for you, but we'll need to save those because we will rush on to our last presentations. We have the two next speakers are from Australia, and I realize it's getting quite late down there, so I'm really happy that you're here. Giada and Karen, they'll be giving a presentation together in Partners in Excellence, Pharmacists and Technicians in Pharmacy Digital Health. Giada Crivelli is a pharmacy technician in the Pharmacy Digital Health team at Alfred Health in Melbourne, Australia. She has utilised her skills in revenue support and marketing to improve the delivery of digital health innovations. Giada's passion for digital health has been applied to improve efficiencies and patient care within Alfred Health. Most recently, Giada, she has been using programming language to streamline medication requests and has trained hospital staff to enhance the confidence in data analysis. And Karen, Ryan, can you pass me the next slide, please? Thank you. Karen Chen is a pharmacist, currently completed an advanced training residency in digital health also at Alfred Health in Australia. Karen has led the implementation of several digital health projects for Alfred Health. Her most recent work has included reporting for a national-wide NAID system for the COVID vaccination program. Also, Karen has been helped to integrate infusion medication delivery system, the smart pumps, with the hospital's electronic medical record system called the Sarma. As part of her residency, Karen will be contributing to research and education with the Digital Health Centre. Welcome both. We're quite excited to hear your presentation.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having me tonight. So I will start to just give you a bit of information about where I work. So if you want to go on with the next slide. So I work at the Alfred. It's one of Australia's busiest emergency and trauma centre located in Melbourne, Victoria. It has the largest ICU and the state-only heart and lung transplant. And with so many specialty to manage, the need for digital health to connect everyday practice was obvious. Especially in the last couple of years that we have seen the rise of telehealth. For example, recently we have introduced the COVID-19 community clinics and outpatient clinics, such as pre-admission for elective surgeries, heart and lung transplant, and other specialties such as cardiology, cystic fibrosis, and so on and so forth. Another thing that has been happening that our team has been involved to is maintaining the COVID-19 vaccine management system, in particular to handle inventory, booking, and vaccination record. Just to give you a brief background on our team, which is the Pharmacy Digital Health team, it started a few years back and it was a pharmacist-only workforce and has slowly become a mix. And now we have 17 people between pharmacists and technicians. We also have a nurse in the mix. If we look at our skills, there is a blend of operational. So for us, operational, it means dispensing and medication supply. And also we have techs with a clinical background. So we have hospital ward-based technician and pharmacists, and which are involved directly with patient care. I think one aspect that it's worth mentioning is that us, the techs, besides being fully credentialed in hospital pharmacy practice, kind of brings some extra flavor to the table. We all have previous training and experiences in different specialties. for example, finance, marketing, science, and also we have communication. We feel that this, having this type of background give us the ability to look at our day-to-day work and challenges in a different way, kind of like outside the pharmacy box. Going back to our team, it's split in 3 divisions. And each one, it focuses on different and yet interconnected tasks. And if you want to move on to the next slide, as you can see from the slide, we have a variety of responsibility that goes from maintaining electronic medication management system, which includes dispensing software, automated dispensing machine, which we call ADMs, infusion management software, our Laris pump, which Karen has been involved quite extensively, especially in the last few months. And we also do training and support all users in the above system. We also play an important role on reporting on medication usage. And what we also do, we create and we maintain standard operating procedures, which we call SOPs, and quick reference guides. Quick reference guides are just very visual outro that we give to the anyone in the hospital that needs to work with ADMs or other system. So if you want to move on to the next slide, please. So to give you like probably a brief understanding of how our team works, I can give an example that it's in our daily workflow is regarding the ADM. We have a build team that it's responsible to create the products in the back end, mostly like pharmaceutical product. And then we have a clinical team that they do what we call product housekeeping, such, for example, helping maintaining minimal inventory quantities, brand changes, updating barcodes, and etc. And also we have a reporting team that will report about usage, discrepancy, and non-conformities that may happen on the ward. Our staff rotate into each of the different divisions roughly every 4 months, regardless of the job title. Whether you're a pharmacist or a technician, you have to rotate. This will allow us to become proficient in all aspects of pharmacy digital health. In this model, duties and responsibility are equally shared between technician and pharmacist. Although some tasks remain pharmacist only, such as analytical tasks requiring clinical knowledge and about medication, techs can perform the same work, the same technical work as a pharmacist, which is one of our major strengths in our team. As a technicians, we are actually expanding our job description and the purpose of our role. And this way, the line between pharmacist and technician role, it's kind of fading. We refer to us as multi-skilled professionals in digital health rather than just techs. And not only we are supporting the pharmacist in the day-to-day work, but now we can work independently and support our whole organization. So if you want to move on to the next slide. One of the biggest example as tech, we lead the training program for automated dispensing machine, mostly for nurses. And we also do provide support and troubleshooting when it's needed. The way we achieve this level of team effectiveness is through knowledge sharing and education. We put a lot of focus on our education. For example, we have a formal scheduled education section and they run fortnightly. Any team member, regardless of the position, can present about absolutely anything. For example, a technology or a system that they have learned and that could make a positive impact on our work. Or, for example, how they've they were able to face a particular challenge, and that will give anyone else the same tools and skills to be able to solve the same problem if it happens. To achieve this type of work sharing, we also have developed a strict credentialing program. Everyone needs to complete this credentialing, and we start. I think the first one that we deployed is about product build in our backend system. And it will eventually encompass all areas of digital health. Just to conclude, I want to say that the pharmacy digital health team at the Alfred Hospital, I strongly believe, is leading the way in partnering of pharmacists and pharmacy technicians in the management of electronic medication-related system to deliver safe and efficient patient care. What's actually happening, we are creating pretty much a new role that is proficient in dispensing and in clinical roles, as well as digital health. That was my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and you kind of got something.
Thank you very much, Giada, for a really good presentation. We have actually come to an end listening to all our speakers now, and I want to thank you all for great presentations. If any of you amongst the audience have any questions at all for our panelists, we would like you very much to submit your questions via the Q&A box on top of Zoom. Now we'll take turns, Ryan and me, to ask the panelists some questions. And I'll start up with the first one asked by Tess Wren from the UK. It's a question for Vijay. Vijay, do you have any concern about the consent and privacy of data, particularly across shared data? Vijay, did you hear the question?
Christina, I just got a note that Vijay's having some trouble with his audio, so perhaps we can come back to him in just a few minutes.
Okay, I'll take one of the questions for Peter. Peter, there was a person asking that you said we need to have barcode readers. Please, may I know the rationale of having to read barcodes is asked from a person called Mingala.
Thank you very much for that question. Of course, I try to twist that question on matter of going forward. We need accountability and appropriateness of the prescription. The barcode reader should help you to know the source of that prescription, and of course, if it's genuine or of course the source. Of course, we have regulated drugs. Patients are becoming a little bit more aware about what we do, on how we regulate ourselves. So a patient can even write himself or herself a prescription. A barcode reader, like we usually do with other commodities, can assist to check the source of that prescription.
Thank you, Peter. So our next question is for Jacqueline. Jacqueline, could you talk about how technicians could be involved in the forum's projects?
Oh, that's quite easy. Depends on the topic of the forum. If, for instance, we are doing a webinar on a specific topic, and if you have a technician who has experience in this very specialized topic, it is very easy to include him. So I think the best should be that we stay in connection with you or somebody from your, the technician association, and then we can get in contact and then update you, and so that you can propose an expert in a technician expert. That's what's easy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jacqueline. Christina?
Yeah, I hear that Vijay, he is back online. So Vijay, we have a question from Tesfan from the UK. Do you have any concern about consent of privacy of data, particularly across shared data?
I think that that is the big question. Again, with the amount of data that's coming in from all these devices, I think even the way that governments have defined what health information is supposed to be has changed. Where that data has come from, what it looks like. Health data in the past used to be data that comes from health systems somehow, or some sort of health environment. But really, health data actually extends, considering social determinants now impact people's health. Even data like where you live, for example, is considered health data in some ways. So I don't think the governments and a lot of the policies have actually been able to evolve fast enough to accept all of those things. The second part to that question is this, is that when you look at privacy and consent and all of those kinds of things at this point in time, I don't think there's enough literacy across health professionals or across patients for that matter at this moment to really help define or help educate everyone as to what's safe, what's not, what to use, what to not use. And I think, governments are getting more involved in trying to approve certain things as devices that are approved for use. And I think the longer that list gets, the better we're in better shape we're going to be. But the rate at which health apps and devices are being produced now, it's hard for governments to keep up with approvals. So I think the only thing I can say right now, in order for, and Peter touched on this in his portion of the presentation, that we need to take initiative, I think, as health professionals, as pharmacy technicians and pharmacists, especially being one of the most accessible places, to understand where and when patients might benefit from something that's a credible health source. There was a study done on, for example, Apple Health being one of the few platforms that actually protects consent and protects people's data. Of 14 apps, 14 platforms that were tested. So realistically, we're not in a safe space yet. I think it's for us to, as health professionals, say, yes, you can use that. You can use that along with this, and when and where to give consent. So I think the two areas that I see as big opportunities right now, for example, and from a therapeutic standpoint, are diabetes and respiratory care. So in diabetes, obviously blood glucose monitors have been there for a long time. But that data from those blood glucometers, it tends to be protected data. Patients can choose to share that with their health professional. And so that is a moment where you've had a personal connection and sharing that data for their health. And same thing with digital devices for inhalers and things like that. So I think those are two spaces where we can take initiative to start helping people right now. Thanks for that question, Tess.
Thank you, Vijay. So our next question is for Giada or Karen, or both of you. Can you talk a little bit about how you got pharmacy technicians involved in the work at Alfred Health, and were there any difficulties transitioning or growing the team from pharmacists only to include nurses and technicians as well?
Well, that's a tricky question. I think that it started with an automated dispensing machine. So we have got this new type of dispensing machine that are highly technological, and what they decided at the time was to involve the ward technicians into help support the nurses. And that slowly has proven that technician can actually work in digital health, and they can provide a very much needed support to pharmacists. I think that was what initiated the involvement of technician in the team, and slowly expanded to other. Personally, I had more of an operational background, and I've been looking after the finances for the department, and I developed analysis type of skill, which helped me get into the team.
Thank you. We have another question for Peter, also by Tesfan from the UK. Peter, do you feel that there are any negative aspects that we need to be aware of, such as interpretation of results and supporting any anxieties that patient may have that needs a clinical intervention? Is that a role for pharmacy technicians?
Hello, Christina and Ryan. Peter is having some connection problems, so if anyone else wants to take this question, or we can get back later to Peter when he's back.
Thank you, Marvin. Ryan, do you have another question?
Sure. So there's a question that just came in. Can there be specialized courses such as oncology pharmacy technician, intensive care pharmacy technician, for career advancement and upgrading? So I would open that up to any of the panelists today. Do any of you have thoughts on specialized courses for pharmacy technicians? Okay, Vijay, I'm going to nominate you for this one. You talked a little bit about point of care testing as, you know, sort of an area of specialized skill for technicians. Are there other areas where you think technicians can receive special training?
You know what, I think there is definitely a growing body of certifications and training that's happening across a lot of the associations, and even within the health systems themselves. I think we had Giada talk about, for example, in the hospital that she works at or has worked with, the fact that they've incorporated technicians into their systems and their operations to deliver patient care better. And I think there's training that happens within those health systems that's available to people to specialize, especially for technicians in these spaces. So I think that's a growing opportunity. I don't know that we need to look for formal training in order to actually play a role. I think getting certified training is always nice, but for systems to catch up and provide that kind of certified training may be a little slow to come. But certainly within your health system or the environment you're working in, it's really important for you to look for those opportunities, and even with the pharmacists you might work with, because they can provide you resources to upskill you to play a role. As long as you know where your role ends and the next one begins. That's the key part, and where data can be shared and where it can't be shared. I think that those are two areas that are really important for technicians to be able to play a bigger role going forward.
If
Giada,
I may,
Jacqueline, go
yes,
ahead.
I have a. I should say to this the person who asked this question, we will have on the 9th of November a webinar on what technology can bring for cytotoxic drugs reconstitution units in hospital. So if it is interesting for him, he could attend this webinar, which will show several examples of insurance quality systems, quite innovative, and also in a sort of serious game with educational focus for cytotoxic reconstitution of drugs. So it's in a virtual experience, virtual reality. in an immersive environment in the real world. So it's quite technical, and I'm sure he would be interested in that. It's not only for pharmacists, it's also for technicians, also for nurses, all the people, the healthcare professionals which are involved in this kind of unit. So this can help the answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I just want to say something that here at the Alfred, we are the only hospital in Australia, I think, that has got this sort of division between technician in operational and clinical. And our clinical need to create and maintain a portfolio that actually shows what they are specialized in. So we do have, like, it's not formal, so it's not like Australia-wide, but we are it's developed for our clinical technicians. So yes, they do have a different type of training, and they have to like specialize themselves in different other ultimately in all the specialty that we do at the Alfred. I just wanted to add this.
Thank you, Giada. Is there any more of the panelists who have a few more comments, because it's almost time to wrap up the session?
Yes, I would like to come back on the confidentiality and privacy of data, because this is a concern of the European Commission. And I still remember having been part of a group and in a meeting where commissioners were wondering, all those apps that monitor your personal data, like registering your heart rate or looking at your sleep pattern. These apps are connected to your identity. Where do the data go? Those apps are not recognized as medical device, and we don't know where the data are stored, or if they go to the supplier of the apps, and what do they do with it? And we have no answer. So the Commission thinks there is a lack of regulation of all this, and all this should be regulated. And it's a difficult problem, because I see Vijay, I don't know exactly the name, but he mentioned FDA, which has recognized apps as medical device. This is a very, very important thing, and we should follow on this, because it's not so easy. I still remember the discussion where the commissioners were asking, those apps that give the forecast, if there are clouds, if there is pollution, and so should they be considered as medical device or not? And of course, we would say, well, it's forecast. Not. It is not so easy, because when you have an app that is telling you, well, there is much pollution, if you've got asthma, don't go out, well, it can save lives. You see? So at which point should we consider an app is a medical device or not? You see how complicated the problem is? So we have no answer now. Just to tell you, it is not so easy at all. It's quite an immense problem. This is what I wanted to make you aware of.
We're raising another interesting discussion. Unfortunately, we don't have time to take one today, but it would be great for another session in the future. On behalf of Ryan and me and FIP, I would like to thank all the panelists for great presentations here today. And I would like to thank all of you who has been listening to this session. You will receive a certificate of attendance by email. It might just be there tomorrow or by the end of the day today, I'm not quite sure. But thank you very much for spending your afternoon with us. It's been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much. There will be a short break now, and this session will continue like with new speakers, 35 minutes past 2. So you'll just have time now to use the restroom, grab a cup of coffee, and you'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in 2 minutes. Hello, everyone, and welcome, everybody. And thank you for those of you who are joining us live and to those listening in afterwards. I'd also like to warmly welcome our guest today, who we will shortly be introducing. Today's presentation is called Unique Pharmacy Technician Activities, Things You Don't Know Pharmacy Technicians Do. Tamara Kohler and myself will be co-moderators for this session. After we introduce ourselves, Tamara will take us through this session's agenda and a few housekeeping announcements. Next slide, please, Tamara. My name is Kathy Schuster, and I'm a licensed pharmacy technician in Canada. I have many years of practicing in retail and hospital settings and development, teaching, and coordination of pharmacy technician program. I have served on several pharmacy committees and boards, including the Canadian Association of Pharmacy Technicians and the Canadian Pharmacy Technician Educators Association Board of Directors, and President of the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada. I am currently the Pharmacy Technician Coordinator for the Canadian Council for Accreditation of Pharmacy Programs. Over to you, Tamara.
Dear all, I'm Tamara Keuler. I'm based in the Netherlands. I'm trained as a pharmacist, and I just recently finished my PhD on the profession of pharmacy technician. So I thoroughly enjoyed myself today with all the sessions, and I'm really looking forward to the sessions of this hour and a half. Currently, I hold a teaching position at the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences at one of our pharmacy educational programs here in the Netherlands. And a warm welcome to all the Dutch pharmacy technicians. So today's program, we really searched for interesting speakers that would tell you something about, things that pharmacy technicians also do that you were not aware of. So Anne-Marie and Claire will tell us all about education and training. Marianne will take us through pattern recognition and perhaps even sort of enlighten us on how to manage 400 of people of staff. Then Rochelle will show us an example of one of those very special jobs that pharmacy technicians can have in transplant care. And then we we close off this session with Karen. You should really stay tuned for that one because she has amazing pictures in her presentation. Then, just as in our last sessions, we have plenty of room for audience participation, so feel free to ask your questions. And then there's this wrap up of 2 days of this digital pharmacy technician symposium. So some housekeeping announcements. First of all, for all the people that are speaking today, please keep your microphone and your camera off until you are speaking, and then we would love to see your face and hear your voice. Good to know for all people that are participating. This webinar is being recorded and live streamed via Facebook. Hi, Facebook audience. The recording will be freely available on the website of FIP. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them. You can use the question box. If you look below, down in your screen, you can see a chat function, but you also see that the question box. Kathy and I will manage the question box and make sure that your question gets the right attention. Of course, The webinars of FIP are always looking for feedback. So if you have comments, either positive or negative, we would love to hear them. And if you're not, become a member of FIP. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Tamara. Pharmacy technicians across the globe play a key role in all aspects of pharmacy practice. Some roles are well known, while others are less common, but equally important in terms of patient care. I would also like to recognize again World Pharmacy Technician Day celebrated yesterday. We have so much to be proud of. Here is what you can expect to learn during today's event. We will identify unique roles for pharmacy technicians. We'll describe the education, training, and experience required for pharmacy technicians to engage in certain areas of pharmacy practice. And we will recognize the key tasks and responsibilities of pharmacy technicians working in transplant, medication administration, smoking cessation, and pharmaceutical manufacturing and distribution. As a reminder, please put any questions you have for our panelists in the Q&A box. Next slide, please, Tamara. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speakers, Anne-Marie Cambo and Claire Williams. Anne-Marie graduated from Portsmouth University with a Master's of Pharmacy and completed a postgraduate diploma in Foundation Pharmacy Practice at University of College London. She completed her specialist pharmacist training at the Royal Brompton Hospital before pursuing a career in academia, education, and training. She became a lead pharmacist in 2013 and a teacher practitioner at the University of Reading. She completed her postgraduate certificate in clinical education and has been awarded Fellow of the Higher Education Academy. Her interests lie in workforce redesign and development and supporting of wider healthcare workforce to adapt and model to new pathways of learning and education. Next slide, please. Claire started her pharmacy career in Lloyd's and then moved to Boots, working in numerous roles. Claire moved into hospital pharmacy and has worked across multiple areas, including aseptics, dispensary, and clinical service. She has completed a foundation degree in medicines management and has graduated this year from Solent University with a Bachelor of Arts honors in leadership and management. Her interests are in developing the role and profile of pharmacy technicians and is secretary to the Hampshire branch of the Association of Pharmacy Technicians in the UK. Welcome, Anne-Marie and Claire. Next slide.
Thank you, Kathy. So it's really lovely to be here with you all today. We're going to be talking about our new role that we came to fruition a few years ago called Medicines Management Administration Technician, and going through the process of role development and where we are now with these roles. Next slide, please. So in order for this to be successful, there was a number of other people that we need to give thanks to in terms of the collaboration around this project. Particularly, it was a multidisciplinary approach, and we would just want to say thank you to those that also helped alongside this, particularly our nursing colleagues as well. Next slide. So in terms of what we're going to go through today, we're just going to go through the outline and rationale behind why we developed these roles. We used a quality improvement methodology in terms of how we implemented this and to feed forward and be really proactive in terms of making change and ensuring that the safety of patients was also maintained whilst we developed competencies around the role. I'll go into how we designed the education training experience, and then Claire will be sharing the actual operational elements of this role and the highlights as well. Next slide. So in terms of how this idea came about, so we've always had ward-based pharmacy technicians at Hampshire hospitals, but we didn't have technicians who were doing sort of ward rounds in terms of joining with the nurses. So we found that there was difficulties in our nurse recruitment, which was putting pressure on our medicines management in terms of governance and safety at ward level, and this was highlighted at a number of inspections. So medicines management was an area of concern, and our pharmacy technician workforce are experts in medicines management. So we were looking into roles in terms of how can we work more collaboratively and embed into the clinical teams at ward level to support them and support our patients. So we looked to broaden the role of the MMT, our medicines management technicians, as a collaborative approach, and we wanted to upskill all healthcare professionals who administer medication to patients as part of this process. Next slide, thank you. So in terms of quality improvement approach to this then, so we looked in terms of what our key drivers for change was. And in essence, we needed to optimize the patient care pathway and not be looking at the patient in silo, i.e. it wouldn't be the medical team would look at the patient first and then the nurses and then pharmacy would arrive. But how can we do this more efficiently and how can we do this all together and use everyone's skill set? So in terms of the ideas that we took forward, in sort of the blue bit on the side of the screen there, we needed to make amendments to policy. That was really important in order to protect ourselves and also to protect the technician that was in the role and ensure from a safety perspective that was then embedded into their job descriptions. We also wanted to ensure that there's competencies around this as well, because it was a new role. So we're entering into a world where we weren't really sure what the outcome would be. And also how we measure that is really important in terms of the message that we then were providing to the wider organisation about how these roles go forward. So we then had to think about what metrics we would want to measure and our key performance indicators. So it was really excited. We brought together a small sort of MDT task and finish group, and we went forward with this idea. Next slide, please. So in terms of then looking at the cycle of change, so the PDSA cycle, so we want to think, what does an MMAT role look like? How do we trial this role? What's the metrics? And then in terms of going forward, always improve and always look to instigate change and learn from everyone that was involved in this role. Next slide. So in terms of what we decided to do, we had one ward that was particularly interested in terms of moving this role forward. So we decided we'd want a pilot for 1 year. We had identified what training needs were needed. And the way we did that was we looked at the difference between the nursing role and the current medicines management training that the pharmacy technicians do, and kind of did a gap analysis in terms of that. Because it was a new competency completely and there wasn't anything that was available nationally. We also went out to other organisations near where we are geographically to see if they had looked at anything of this sort in terms of role development. It was also really important that we checked that under our regulator, so the General Pharmaceutical Council, that this was okay in terms of expanding the role of the pharmacy technician, which it was. So from that, then we decided to develop a competency document. We also had to pitch this to everyone who wasn't sure what this role would involve. So Claire designed a model day, and this template was then used in terms of the recruitment process as well. And of course, we needed to look at the job descriptions and the person specification. And we decided that this would be a band 5 role. So that's Agenda for Change, which is what we use in hospital pharmacy here in the UK. And we recruited to the Medicines Management Administration Technician post. Next slide. So how we did that then, we utilised our current job descriptions, and then we looked at, in terms of competencies and local academic institutes, in terms of what modules they support currently for nursing and how we could adapt that. We identified that although they would let medicines management technicians perhaps complete the administration module with a university locally, they didn't actually help in terms of the role and how to work in that environment. So there was a disconnect there between sort of the educational material that was available and also how to perform a role which is patient facing, and you'd have to potentially do elements like medicines management, moving and handling, and also assessing the patient's swallow, for example, before you administer the medication. So as you can see, there was a bit of a gap there, and that's what we had to work together in order to produce some learning materials for this. So we looked at the learning outcomes from modules that currently exist, and then we devised our roles. So this was a really, really valuable experience to do, and it's really interesting when you start looking at the competencies behind all the different professional groups in terms of what they do and how they support those elements of medicines administration to a patient. And that ultimately sort of enriched this experience and led to a very successful pilot. Next slide, please. So in terms of the educational experience then that the medicines management administration technician then had to do, we decided that in order to administer medication, they would have to interpret the basic observations that the patient needed. So that would be like their heart rate, blood pressure, for example, anything that we expect the nursing staff to be doing on a regular basis. They also needed to help move the patient or assess the patient in terms of their swallow. So they did manual handling as well. And also it was recommended by the nurse in charge of that ward that they would do a speech and language therapy assessment, so they would understand the requirements that are recommended by that team. I then designed the competency workbook that was created for this role, and I have developed a lot of training materials in my academic role, but actually this one was quite different in the fact that when I went to write it, I realised I didn't actually know how nurses administer medication on the wards. So I went to shadow the nurses on their ward rounds, which was a really valuable experience and a lot of peer learning there in terms of the questions that they were asking me and the ones that I was asking them. So we created this competency workbook, and actually from the workbook that we produced, we actually then didn't seclude it only to the MMATs. We said that all other healthcare professionals that could be doing medicines administration may also want to complete the workbook as well, just for their learning and good governance. So we opened it out to the allied health professional group, our associate practitioners, and newly qualified nurses as well. And this workbook also included basic sort of scenarios and ward-based observations and drug calculations as well. So it was really, really interesting. I will hand this over to Claire now.
Hello. So one of the things when we were looking at the role, when we were starting to establish it, was how we would fit into the ward-based team. So we wanted to start off small, and we thought that a surgical ward would be the best place to start this. However, the ward that was interested was actually our stroke ward. So although we had some reservations initially at the beginning, we found that actually with the support of the ward, that actually it was a really good place to start, because actually if we could prove that this role could work there, then actually the chance of expanding it was even greater. So one of the things that we wanted to do was set sort of minimum competencies for what this role would be. So we wanted to have an established technician who already had medicine management skills, that they had their checking technician qualification, because we felt that if they were giving out medication, they needed to have a good attention to detail. And this helps to cement that they can check medication. They already have that professional responsibility. It was a non-traditional working pattern. Currently in hospitals, our traditional working hours are the 9 till 5, but we were asking to be part more of the ward-based team, so it would be a 7 till 3 start, so then they could become actively involved in ward handovers. We still wanted to maintain a 10% pharmacy commitment to support their professional competencies with regard to their checking technician and to maintain their CPD requirements. And so we decided, because of the split role, the fact that they would be more purely ward-based as opposed to coming backwards and forwards into the pharmacy team, that the ward manager on the job would have oversight, so would sort out things like annual leave, sickness and everything like that. But as the lead medicines management technician, I still had professional oversight of the role. Next slide, please. So these were some of the benefits of having somebody within that team. We found that having somebody permanently on the ward rather than just going in for an hour and a half a day just to do some drug histories and seeing patients at the beginning of their stay and then at the end of their stay with their discharges, that actually there was a cost saving on oral and IV medicines because they were actively involved in the drug rounds. They were aware of what stock were in the cupboards, topping up drug trolleys and things like that. And when patients had stopped expensive IVs, they were able to return that medication so it be reused and not just left to go expire on the in the treatment rooms. And therefore the medicines administration technician took over a lot of those stock ordering and topping up responsibilities. We found that there was a lot more involvement in we call them nomad trays, so the 7-day blister pack trays that patients use out in the community, because the medicines administration technician got much more involved in individual patients, could have conversations with them around how they take their medicines, where they were struggling. We were able to reduce some of the blister packs and help with the compliance issues that may have been missed had we not had somebody as a specialist in that area talking to patients. So better management of ward stock, better use of patients' own drugs. As technicians, we're more familiar with the different types of drugs, the different brands of drugs, so we're able to use make better use of the patient's medication that they brought in with hospital. We're measured on our medicines reconciliation rates and how many are completed within a 48-hour period, and this improved on the ward because again the technician was there and was able to see new patients in a quicker time before they so they were able to talk to them about their drug history prior to admission. We were able to turn around the time that discharge medication took because, again, conversations could be had between the MMAT and the patient about what they had at home. Medication could be ordered in preparation for discharge because the technician knew what was they were going to run out of. The enhanced patient contact definitely helped. I think when we only see the patient at admission and possibly again at discharge, actually getting to know the patients individually, seeing how they take their medicines, we were able to provide more counselling and support them with their medicines. They embedded themselves brilliantly within the ward team and became a valuable member of the ward team, rather than just dipping in and dipping out, which is what we tend to do at the moment. And then it maintained consistent ward cover and staffing so that the clinical staff on the wards knew who they could go to all the time, rather than having different people covering at different points. So where we are now, so the MMAT has been successfully in post for 3 years and is an established member of the ward team. They have a new skill set and increased job satisfaction, and will be going on to do a clinical prioritisation course to look at in more depth at how to prioritise their patients clinically. Stock levels are reduced to manageable levels, which results in cost savings, and then nurses are free to deliver other aspects of nursing care, which fits within their role. Next slide, please. So initially, some nurses felt this role stopped them getting to know their patients, and we did have some pushback from some people feeling that when they weren't doing the drug round, they didn't get to know their patients. But when we had discussions, it was felt that actually they did get to know their patients because they were able to do some of the more traditional nursing stuff, looking after the patients and everything like that. So I think it was a little bit they were worried a little bit at first that they were being pushed out of a job, but then they realised the benefit of having somebody who knew about medicines to be able to do that. Pharmacy competencies had to be maintained. There was budgetary implications with maintaining our professional standards. So the fact that we still wanted them to work the weekend and do their checking, obviously the ward wanted them on their ward, so we had to compromise with the time that the technician had to maintain their competencies. But also we needed clear guidance on training to transition from supervised to working autonomously, and the competence in non-traditional pharmacy tasks. But we were very lucky with the support from the ward staff that we had. Next slide, please. Okay, so our key message was that role development will not happen overnight, but it's a longer term plan to encourage retention through training and development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie and Claire. That was quite a project you presented. Thanks so much to share that with us. I already mentioned it, and so did Kathy, but if you have questions for our speakers, please put them down in our question box. I can see we already had 2 questions in, and you know, to be sure, just let us know who of the speakers you are addressing your question to, and one more tiny housekeeping. Apparently I mixed up all our social media. We do not have a live broadcast on Facebook, but we are on YouTube, even bigger medium. Okay, over to our next speaker. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our third speaker, Marianne Tim. Marianne Tim is CEO for Chellis and Max Yen, a McKesson company in Denmark. Marianne was educated as a pharmaconomist in Copenhagen, and she worked several years in pharmacies, hospitals, and medical practices. This all led to a successful career in the pharmaceutical industry, where she has held many different director positions. For the past 7 years, Marianne has been CEO of a very large pharmaceutical wholesale company, established in Copenhagen for over 100 years already. In her role as CEO, Marianne has the responsibility for almost 400 employees. Marianne, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for FIP. It is a pleasure, is it an honor for me to have received your invitation. And I still remember my first FIP Congress many years ago. So next slide, please. I would like to start by mentioning that in my position as a CEO, I am surrounded by specialists. I'm constantly briefed by the most skilled in their respective areas in the organization. And I'm continuously in dialogue with experts within logistics, IT, quality, finance, legal, HR, customer service, sales, and marketing. The amount of information I get is huge. I get more than 100 emails per day. Sometimes, some days actually, I participate in more than 15 meetings and my phone is constantly ringing. So my job is to prioritize, add together and separate analyses to make both quick and right decisions. When I make a right decision, I need to make another right decision and another right decision and another one. Already back in our studies, when we started, we actually learned to process data critically and productively. In a swarm of data, we had to find patterns, and we actually had to find these patterns which gave us knowledge and learning. There was always a great satisfaction in recognizing these patterns and using them to learn new things. Ever since my student days, I have been interested in pattern recognition. I'm aware that I actually have built up a special expertise in the field, and that my current big pattern library actually gives me an ability to understand and comprehend throughout the organization. And next slide, please. The company I represent, Chellis and Max Yen, is a McKesson company in Denmark, and it is a pharmaceutical wholesaler who stores and distributes a full range of pharmaceuticals for pharmacies, hospitals, and online pharmacies. And because of our key location in the whole supply chain, our main responsibility is to secure the supply of pharmaceuticals in Denmark. We have many different types of employees in our company, and a large group is actually pharmaconomists. We have pharmaconomists in many different areas here in our company, in quality department, in customer service, in sales, in logistics, and actually also in our IT department, we have pharmaconomists. They ensure the professional communication and collaboration to the pharmacies and hospitals and to actually their colleagues, because they are also pharmaconomists or pharmacists. In Denmark, our company has a significant market share We have a turnover of approximately 4 billion DKK, and we are processing 27,000 order lines per day on average all year. Our warehouse is new and driven by the most advanced technology with the best IT and robotics management, a technology which in time contribute to pattern recognition in customers and the market. And next slide, please. There are few people in the business world who becomes CEOs, and there isn't a formula which can ensure that you end up in that position. A significant part of my development was about continuing education within business administration, economics, and management. Those education are available for purchase at the universities and in courses out in the market. But engagement, enthusiasm, and your social competences are not something which you can buy. Your personal development is a lifelong project. A significant part of your personality is shaped in your childhood. This is proven. However, we can again particularly open to develop in your youth, where we are educating ourselves. And we carry out basic education with us through the whole life. And I have never, no matter how many business schools I have graduated from, let go of the values I got with my pharmaconomist education. This have given me a high degree of integrity, sense of quality and ethics, and respect for the patient first. This was a reflection on my journey to the unique role as CEO. I only need to mention one more theme. A CEO is always measured on her results. Next slide, please. This slide can give you all an indication of the complexity a CEO is faced with and must act in. My decision in one corner of the business can have an unforeseen and big impact on the completely different part of the business. Most tasks can be handled and solved in the different departments. We have standards, procedures, we have contract and law, we have HR, we have a reflective culture, we have internal training and education, we have analysis, report and controls, and we know our reason to be. I believe in my employees. Employees, they can do the right thing and do the right thing right in their individually position most of the time. Sometimes challenges need to be seen as a part of a pattern, which is currently unfolding here and now, but which is also significant looking back in time and which would also have an effect on what happens in the future. So it is necessary for a CEO to know the stakeholders. You need to build up relation to all central people. And as one example, political decisions are not made at random. By using pattern recognition, a CEO can predict important changes for the business. And the next slide, please. Our brain has the special ability to find patterns. In everyday situation, we can rely on pattern recognition to know how to act in a certain situation. And pattern recognition has always been a significant asset to human development. Computer software are trying to mimic our brain. And when we open our phone with a fingerprint or facial recognition, then it's based on pattern recognition. surveillance of people of the street or scanning of Facebook profiles are based on pattern recognition. The weather forecast is based on a large amount of data which is analyzed by powerful computers. And based on this pattern recognition, we get a weather forecast, and we can choose if we need to have an umbrella or sunglasses. A farmer can also make skilled assessment and predictions on the weather. The farmer can actually observe signs in the nature and recognize the pattern, and they can decide whatever they actually will start the harvest. When I was 19 years old, pharmaceutical science student, I learned to analyze data by diving into this and finding patterns. Today, many years later, I actually use that skill in management. I see several dimensions in data, and based on pattern recognition, I qualify the decision. I qualify my decisions. So pattern recognition has become an essential skill in my leadership as CEO. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marianne, for sharing your expertise and experience. You identified how important professional development and lifelong learning is in advancing the profession, and that is so true for all of us. Thank you again. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our fourth speaker, Rachel Shelkey. Rachel is a registered pharmacy technician from Ontario, Canada. She works at Transplant Outpatient Pharmacy at Toronto General Hospital in Toronto, Ontario. Rachel is involved with the billing, dispensing, and distribution of medications for patients of the Ajmera Transplant Centre, Canada's largest organ transplant program. She is also a member of the advisory committee for the pharmacy technician program at Centennial College in Canada. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. I'm Rochelle Shelkey, a registered pharmacy technician in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Today, I'll be discussing the role of pharmacy technicians in transplant care. Currently, I practice as a pharmacy technician at Transplant Outpatient Pharmacy, part of the University Health Network's Ajmera Transplant Centre. The center is based out of Toronto General Hospital in downtown Toronto. At this point, you might be wondering, so how is a transplant outpatient pharmacy different from a standard hospital outpatient pharmacy? Or how is it even different from a community pharmacy? Let's start with a wider focus on transplant outpatient pharmacy as a whole before we dig into the role of a pharmacy technician here. First off, as I said earlier, we're part of the Ajmera Transplant Centre. We're the largest and most comprehensive transplant program in Canada and one of the top transplant programs in North America. Physically, our pharmacy is located in the ambulatory clinic, which means we work directly with the doctors and nurses who are taking care of the ambulatory patients. And our transplant patients are members of the community rather than transplant patients currently admitted to an inpatient unit. The focuses of our center are transplants of the heart, lung, liver, kidney, and kidney pancreas. We do have some patients that fall outside of this pool, but I would say those 5 transplants are our most common. These transplant patients, for the purposes of our pharmacy, can be broken down into 3 very broad but slightly smaller categories. We have our pre-transplant patients, who are patients who are currently on the wait list for a transplant. These can vary from transplant patient or pre-transplant patients who are local to the Toronto area, or even patients who have relocated across the country to access care at our clinic. Another group of patients we deal with are recently transplanted patients. These are patients preparing for discharge and reintegration back into the community. And finally, we have our transplant patients in the community who have stabilized, they've been discharged, and they've gone back and they come back in for monthly assessments and checkups. Again, these are very broad categories, and there's a lot of variables and nuances within inside those patient categories. Each patient of mine is unique. That's the case for all patients, of course, but it's especially the case in transplant where there's many situational and circumstantial factors in play. A pre-lung transplant who is relocated, a patient who is relocated from another part of the country may require different care than a pre-kidney transplant patient who lives inside my city, for example. Next slide, please. As I explained in the slide before, our patient population is very focused on transplant, and our pharmacy services are very specialized. The idea of working closely with a specialized patient population can be very evocative, especially in an outpatient setting where you're involved in the day-to-day lives of those patients. You get to experience some of their experiences by providing them care. To speak from personal experience, this is a very rewarding side of my job. Some of you watching today might be wondering how a technician can transition from a broader job to a job in transplant pharmacy, or perhaps even another specialized outpatient pharmacy setting. Speaking of transplant, one issue we have is there are very few transplant-specific patients in Canada. If you are a technician practicing already in community pharmacy, you may have a handful of transplant patients in your population. When we're hiring, we usually aren't looking for a pharmacy technician with years of experience working with transplant because there's not that many of us in our country. That might work to your advantage if you're interested in taking your career in a new direction after this presentation. For example, of our expectations of experience in education and hiring, we look for a standard education in Canada that would be, or in Ontario specifically, it would be with a college pharmacy technician program. In Ontario, those programs are run through several colleges, such as Humber College, Mohawk College, or Centennial. Applicants should also be registered with the Ontario College of Pharmacists as a pharmacy technician. And finally, we're looking for a minimum 2 years retail tech experience. We don't want someone we want someone who's had a little bit of experience with retail before we think about training them for a specialized role. And that is where we can focus on and discuss the parts of the job where pharmacy technicians are very important. Because if you don't have pharmacy technicians specialized in transplant, you're going to have to train them. There are 5 sections I want to focus on in terms of talking about the role of the pharmacy technician, to give you some insight about how we have to train someone up to work in the specialized field and what we can actually do. Those sections are pharmacy systems, automation, adjudication and insurance, medication knowledge, and community outreach. Next slide, please. So for pharmacy systems and automations, we have 2 systems that really help us out a lot, and our technicians are involved in the day-to-day operation. The big one for us is SynMed. SynMed allows us to produce blister packs. It's an automated blister packing system and allows us to produce blister packs that are more accurate, safe, and faster than manually making blister packs. When I was brought on, back in 2015, we had 60 blister pack patients. Currently, we have over 530 patients. Blister packing is very important to our specialized population because we see 2 groups of patients. One group of patient who, upon getting ready for discharge, the inpatient unit identifies them as possibly needing compliance packaging to help take their medication on a daily basis, or patients who have transitioned their care back to the community and realize once they've integrated back home that it's a lot of medication and they need a little bit of help keeping things in order. Beacon is an interesting system because it is an inventory and management system, but it is set up to manage a complex and shifting inventory in a very small space. This means that because we're located inside the clinic itself, we don't have a large footprint. So it allows us to manage this large pharmacy inventory in a space that is quite small. If you aren't familiar with Beacon, how it works is instead of items being filed alphabetically on shelves, they are filed by barcode and randomized. And when the pharmacy technician is filling, they scan the location of the barcodes as a second verification to make sure they're selecting the right product. Next slide, please. A big part of the technician day job is adjudication and insurance. Those can be intimidating words, and the easiest way to explain the type of adjudication a technician will do in transplant is complicated. As part of their training, technicians need to learn what complications are normal for transplant patients or normal for patients dealing with uncommon or high cost items, and what complications are not. In transplant, it is unacceptable for a technician to tell a patient, oh, your insurance isn't paying for an item. You'll have to figure out a means of paying for it. As a technician, we need to know why the insurance isn't paying for it. We need to figure out what steps the patient can take at this point to establish having coverage, and then give them direction and guidance on what the patient needs to do next to help make sure their medication is covered. My patient's health is directly tied to their ability to pay for prescription medications. We do have some tools that technicians need to be familiar with, such as patient-assisted cards, prior approval and special authorization forms. Those give us a few more tools in our toolkit to make sure our patients have continuation of care. To talk about, from a specifically Canadian standpoint, one of the issues we do have with adjudication is out of province billing. This might be an issue with certain countries, but different regions in Canada have their public pharmacare handled by different entities, and they don't always talk back and forth. In Ontario, a pharmacy technician may be expected to understand just how public coverage works in Ontario, but with transplant, I need to know how public coverage works basically across the country. I have to have some familiarity, and if I don't have an answer, I need to have the tools to figure out how to get those answers. One of the most challenging, and to be honest about myself, most fun parts of dealing with adjudication is teaching patients how to communicate with their insurance companies. I'm confident when dealing with insurance providers, and my colleagues are, because we do this every day, but it can be very intimidating for patients to call up a third party, call up their provider, and start asking questions, confirming what forms are needed if there's any information missing. There are situations due to how healthcare privacy laws work in Canada where the patient is the only person who is allowed to call those insurance providers and get that information. My job as a technician is to share my experience with handling these insurance companies and reassure and coach the patient on how to walk through those phone calls and help empower them to take more, or a little bit more control of their care. Next slide, please. Medication knowledge is a complicated topic because as a pharmacy technician, we have to reflect on the technician's scope of practice. As a pharmacy technician in Ontario, there are certain things I can't talk about in certain therapeutic, well, I can't make a therapeutic decision because that's in the pharmacist's scope of practice. However, I have specialized a practical experience for working in transplant for 5 years. As a technician, I am the first point of contact for many of my patients, other healthcare professionals in the transplant center and outpatient pharmacies. Here's some examples of how a technician can operate within their scope of practice and yet help share their medication knowledge for best outcomes. For a patient-centric example, dosing on anti-rejection medication happens quite frequently. For example, a patient comes in and they ask, should they dispose of their 100 milligram cyclosporin capsules because their dose has shifted down to 75 milligrams, necessitating the need for 25 milligram capsules. I can teach the patient how to read their packaging to find the expiry dates and suggest to them that perhaps they want to keep that different dose on hand in case the dose shifts again, because there's a likelihood it may, but also inform the patient on what they can do with that medication if it does expire. As a member of the Ajmera Transplant Center, I work with a multidisciplinary team. We work closely together with our nurse coordinators. An example of working with a healthcare professional is a nurse may call up requesting more information about a patient's current medications because of their blood work. I can I can help the nurse gather information based off what was filled at the pharmacy and share details such as what dose they were prescribed, when the patient picked up and when I would anticipate a refill. And that will help the nurse make sense out of the blood work they have presented. For outside pharmacies, I can share knowledge about adjudication of medications, including details such as certain transplant medications that cannot be adjudicated by an outside pharmacy that need to be adjudicated for me. I can also recognize situations that require pharmacist interventions. For example, unexpected prescriptions that seem a little bit out of line with my expectations, or if a patient makes a passing comment that strikes me as a bit uncommon or unusual that possibly needs a pharmacist intervention immediately, that is another place where I can apply my scope of practice without stepping over it. Next slide, please. Another very interesting and very specialized part of my job is, and that other technicians are taking advantage of, is community outreach and advocacy work. When you're dealing with a specialized population, you learn about their struggles and their challenges dealing with day to day, and you can't help but get involved with the lives of your patient population. For a personal example, in 2020, I was involved in the High School Outreach Initiative. This is a high school outreach program organized by the University of Toronto Transplant Institute in partnership with the Trillium Gift of Life Network. Healthcare professionals working in transplant present to high school students, teaching them about our transplant program, dispelling common myths about transplant, and teaching students how to make informed decisions about organ donation. Next slide, please. In conclusion, pharmacy technicians are an integral part of our multidisciplinary team at the Ajmera Transplant Center. We work alongside nurses, doctors, and pharmacists, among other healthcare providers, to strive for the best outcomes for our patients. My scope of practice means, as a technician, I do more than just counting pills. I'm a member of this team, operating within my scope of practice and directly involved in the lives of our transplant patients. My involvement contributes to the success of the pharmacy and of the transplant center. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rochelle. That was an excellent talk. Thank you for enlightening us on the specialized role in transplant care pharmacy technicians can take on. And I especially see you empowering patients to get to talk to those insurance providers. Thank you very much. For our next speaker, it gives me, again, a great pleasure to introduce her. It's Karen Hemmingsen, and Karen is educated in both hospital and private pharmacy practice. Her current position is a smoking cessation coordinator in a private pharmacy setting. Karen is also a member of a rehabilitation team at the Cancer, Diabetes and Lung School, where she teaches how the lungs work and how important smoking cessation is for lung disease. She also teaches different professional groups about lungs and, of course, smoking cessation. Karen, the floor is yours. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Last week, my phone rang. I picked it up and it was Michael. At first, I couldn't remember Michael. He said, "We did it. Today, it's 5 years ago since I quit smoking." I will come back to Michael in a couple of slides. My name is Karen Hemmingsen, and I'm going to talk about my work in smoking cessation in Denmark. Next slide, please. And the next. Yes. In 1999 to 2002, I was training to be a pharmaconomist in as well a private and hospital pharmacy. I found this article from 2001. It's about being one of the first kind of that students. Wow, it's 20 years ago, and I remember it as it was last week. After finalizing my education, I was at 2 different pharmacies before I started in the county. During my maternity leave in 2009, I came across this note about a job as 1-year project consultancy position with smoking cessation in Vordingborg County. In 2002, I was educated as a smoking cessation counselor and have developed my skills in smoking cessation. In the job advertisement, they looked for a nurse for this position, and I thought, what is the worst that can happen? I was lucky and came to the job interview. They said, "You're not a nurse, so let's see what you are capable of." They didn't know a thing about what a pharmaconomist could contribute with. After 6 months, they offered me a permanent position. And I still have this position after 12 years. Next slide, please. When I started in Vordingborg County, there were no manuals or anything about how to do smoking cessation. I only knew that they had been without a coach for quite a while. So what to do? I began a project manager for a 3-year project about smoking cessation prevention at the primary schools with the Danish Cancer Society. Through all my courses and by talking with the customers at the pharmacy, I knew that some people are not in for group courses indoor behind a table. And many people is afraid to gain weight through their smoking cessation. Innovative thinking and why I developed smoking cessation in the nature and smoking cessation and exercise. 2 types of smoking cessation, which now have been implemented throughout many counties in Denmark. The benefit of exercise and conducting lifestyle changes in nature are evidence-based, as well as the combination of smoking cessation tools, including nicotine replacement products. Next slide, please. Working with smoking cessation in a county is completely different compared to working in a pharmacy. In the pharmacy, almost all situations and questions are foreseeable. However, in smoking cessation, nothing is foreseeable, and the route to obtaining the goals are different for all clients. My important task is not to give them all solutions, but to coach them and to present the whole toolbox for them, to pick and choose what fits them best. All smokers have mixed experience with smoking cessation. Our joint task is to strengthen the good experience. As you can see, the office sometimes is a bit different than at the pharmacy. We also do outdoor smoking cessation. Next slide, please. My job consists of many tasks, and therefore 2 days of the week are never the same. I daily have conversation with many clients on the phone. All clients are offered a lung function measurement as a part of the management of COPD in Vordingborg County. There are unfortunately still a lot of smokers who have an undiscovered COPD, and a lot of them have never been offered a lung function measurement by the doctor. I make smoking cessation in group as well as one-to-ones. In Denmark, it's free to get help to smoking cessation in the counties. I am regular at the rehabilitation teams of diabetes, cancer, and COPD to coach them. I also present our results and methods in various places, including the Education Institution of Pharmaconomists, Pharmacon. I share our knowledge with cross-functional teams about the importance of smoking cessation and maintenance of lung function. I'm often contacted to give presentation in companies who wish to support their employees in implementing total smoking cessation. There is, as well in many other jobs, a lot of documentations and reporting to the National Research Database. Therefore, I'm proud to inform you that this approach has made Vordingborg County among the 3 best of smoking cessation counties in Denmark. Next slide, please. I love working with all the adolescents. For me, it's what it's all about, to teach all the young people in a way that's not a raised finger, but to inform them so they can make choices in their lives, what they accept now and in the future, because they will be offered cigarettes, water pipe, vaping, nicotine bags, drugs, alcohol, etc. And this is an integrated part of risk behavior awareness in close collaboration with the Danish SSP, its school, social administration, and police. As a part of the package for the class, the parents get the most of the same information, the most important, and I really recommend them to talk with their children about it so they and their parents can have mutual agreements about behavior and expectations. The smoking young people and nicotine bag users have free access to smoking cessation. Often I make individual coaching with them because when they are in a group, they put on a mask and take on a specific role in that group. And that makes it difficult to find out who they really are, what makes sense, and what motivates them. I also do train the trainer sessions for the colleagues who works closely with the young citizens about how to talk with the young people about smoking cessation and to give them knowledge about young people, smoking, and nicotine bags. The combination of a young brain and tobacco is really highly harmful. I can't say that enough. The past few years, I have spent majority of my time within coaching how schools can limit it and avoid smoking during the school time. From 2021, it is forbidden by law in Denmark to use any kind of tobacco and nicotine bags in all primary schools and in all educational institutions. Next slide, please. Cross-functional collaboration is a cornerstone in my work. Cross-functional solutions ensure the optimal success criteria for the individual client. In the majority of cases, I succeed providing the right tools for the client. In other cases, it's a team effort. When you work with this type of clients and generally in the healthcare system, it's so important to look at the client holistically. Often it calls for a cross-functional collaboration with the doctors, nurses, therapists, health nurse, police, etc., to help the client in the best way to achieve their goal. Every day in my work, I use my skills from the pharmacy when I talk with the clients. In the cross-functional collaboration, we combine all our skills to provide the best options for all the clients. Some clients have previous experiences of falling between chairs, and by using the cross-functional approach, prevents this from happening again. Next slide, please. Back to Michael and why he succeeded. He believed in himself, and he believed that it would be the best present for himself at his 60-year-old birthday. He couldn't catch up with his family and at their hiking tours or play with his grandchildren because of his COPD. He couldn't manage the sailboat anymore that him and his wife used to spend all their time at. He believes that instead of making the same mistakes again and again, he had to find a new way to make the smoking cessation. He believed that he needed help and picked up the phone. He believed in the method. Now Michael have got a whole new life. He and his family are doing the hiking tours again together. He can play with his grandchildren, and the best of it, he and his wife are out at the ocean again in their sailboat. He believed in the plan we made together, and he stuck to our agreement. I feel so lucky and grateful about being a part of this journey with Michael and being able to use my skills and my competences in this way. This presentation is based on clients like Michael. I hope this can be inspirational to believe in your skills and your competencies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Karen, so much for that wonderful presentation. You have an amazing role and so relevant globally, especially when working with adolescents, and you're doing a great job. Tamara and I will now go to the question box, and we've got a few questions that people have put in. This one is for just a second here. I've got for Rachel. Such an interesting role. Do you have your own caseload of patients so you can build up a close relationship, and do they come to you with their questions and any medication problems?
So I don't have a specific case pool of patients who are assigned to just me. It's the pharmacy's general population. I do end up working a lot of entry right now. So I am, again, that first contact most of the time for patients who come up to the counter who just have questions because they've come to clinic and something was said about their medications. They walked away and afterwards they had this moment of, I'm not quite sure what that meant. So they'll come to us and either I'll answer that question within my scope of practice as a technician, or I'll escalate it to a pharmacist if it's outside my scope.
Thank you, Rachel. Tamara, I'll answer the first three questions probably in one fell swoop. It's very difficult to talk about the role of pharmacy technicians in other countries because every country has a different idea of what pharmacy technicians can and should be doing, whether you're licensed or unlicensed. I just want to remind people that we do have a website, a FIP website for support workforce. And if anybody's interested, it's www.fip.org/workforce. /support workforce. And there will be some interesting articles on the glossary of terms for pharmacy technicians. There'll also be there is an article being presented now for what pharmacy technicians are doing across the globe, across the world. If you're interested in having a look at that, please go to the website and take a good look. Tamara, sorry.
Yeah, Kathy, can I follow up with a question for Anne-Marie and Claire?
Sure.
Okay, so Tess Van asked the question, and actually, Anne-Marie and Claire, it's 3 questions, so pay attention. Tess really would like to know how long the training for pharmacy technicians is, and who conducts the competency assessments. And final question, are there any professional indemnities, sorry, I don't know the word, aspects linked to that new role for PTs? And please inform me, what does indemnity mean?
Indemnity, so it's like your insurance against liability. Right. So if I answer that bit first, because we designed a competency assessment that was approved at the Trust Drug and Therapeutics Committee and added to trust-wide policy, we felt that once the pharmacy technician had passed their competencies and been signed off, that they would be covered by the hospital indemnity, so they didn't have to get any further indemnity insurance by themselves. In terms of the actual timeline for training, so this is already an established member of our pharmacy team in terms they've completed their baseline medicines management training and their checking qualification as well. So in part of their induction process, which is over a month's period, we added them to the nurse induction that the trust does. So where we could, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We wanted to use existing training packages that are there already. So our trust offers mandatory training in terms of manual handling and swallow assessments and observation training for the nurses. So it was just about adding the technician to that program of events, which occurs over a day. And then they have various e-learning packages as well that are available, and we embedded that into the induction. The induction at the ward was oversaw by the matron, and in terms of using the competency workbook, that was based around Miller's pyramid, so knows, shows and does, and it was about sort of that shadowing first and then going and being observed. And I think they had to do sort of 5 or 6 elements of observation before getting signed off as competent, similarly to how we would do things normally with other pharmacy-specific assessments. Hope that answers the questions.
Good. Thank you, Anne-Marie. I have a question for Karen, and the question is, how do you use your education as a pharmaconomist in your work with the clients?
Yes. Well, when I talk to these clients, there is a lot of questions, and we call I look at the patients or the clients holistically. Often it's also about the products and interaction by drugs, or maybe they have some other stuff they are dealing with. Then I can use my skills to help them with that. But I think from all these years at the pharmacy and all the talks I have with the customers at the pharmacy, I feel grounded in this position to talk to them and know what is important to them when they come to the smoking cessation in the county, because as I said, many of them aren't they don't like to get to smoking cessation indoor or as many other counters do. So I can use all of my skills and all the talks I have for them to make the best for them.
Thank you, Karen. Mara?
Yeah, do we feel we have time for one more short question?
I think so. Do we have a question for Marianne?
Yes. Marianne, one of the participants really would like to know what you see as the most difficult and demanding part of being a CEO.
Actually, it is that the developing from being a national into an international global world. It means that the world never sleeps. So when the world never sleeps, you actually need to be in top physical and mental shape because you need to watch all the time. You can see BBC in the middle of the night and you can get all the news information all the time. So actually, I take care of my health. I do some meditation and make sure that I can't sleep sometimes, but I need to be aware of that the whole world never will sleep.
Thank you.
We have time. I think we have time for one more question, Tamara, and maybe this question for Rachel. How can pharmacy technicians get more involved in advocacy work?
Sorry, my video struggled a little bit to turn back on. I think pharmacy technicians could become more involved with advocacy work by noticing sort of the holes in society, as it were, or the moments for social justice when dealing with your patient populations, because you're going to be the person who is witness to these things, and then reach out to either organizations you're working with or possibly organizations your patient might be aware of and use it as a stepping stone. So for me to get involved with the education, that is something run by the clinic, but it was very important to me because I know patients who have been on the wait list. I know patients that don't make it because they pass away before they make it to their spot on the wait list. So it's important for me as a technician and as a person to reach out and talk to high school students about what misconceptions do you have about the ethics of transplant? Well, let's talk about that. And yeah, I think it's just a piece of self-reflection, thinking about where have you experienced situations as a technician where you wanted to do more?
Thank you, Rachel. And from my experience in my 47 years of practicing as a pharmacy technician, I've found that sometimes you just have to say yes when people ask you to join in, and that certainly helps you advance your career. So I thank you for that. Tamara?
Yes. Well, dear all, I would sincerely like to thank all our panelists and of course my co-moderator Kathy, but also you as an audience for showing up today, for participating, for asking questions, for hopefully getting something out of it today and transferring it into your own context. As we said, the recording of this episode will be made available on the website of FIP, www.fip.org. If you would like to provide us with feedback, you can use the email address as stated. And I would now like to hand over the microphone and video images to Professor Ian Bates and Susan James, who had the honorable tasks of participating in all sessions of these 2 days. And they will now provide us with the most valuable snippets of these 2 days of our digital pharmacy technician symposium. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tamara. And thank you to all of our speakers in all of the sessions we've had the last couple days, yesterday and today. We've had 4 amazing sessions. So thank you so much to each and every of our speakers, our moderators, coordinators, those that helped in preparing this. And to those of you who have been so actively engaged in participating, asking your questions, and providing your feedback all along through our chats and Q&A. This has just been a phenomenal pharmacy technician symposium. I don't know how many people have been able to listen to all 4 of the sessions, but even each and every one of them has been incredibly informative and truly inspiring in terms of the opportunities for the advancement of this workforce and pharmacy workforce in general. It's been a pleasure to listen to all of the sessions. Our objective with the symposium is always to bring together pharmacy professionals and anybody else who is interested in the advancement of the pharmacy technician workforce and to share, gain some understanding of the kinds of contributions that are being made right now globally. And there's no doubt that we have achieved that and that we have also provided you with some amazing opportunities for further development in your own areas. Appreciate that you will have seen many things that will have inspired you, and we've seen sort of through the chats, I suppose, some comments about being excited about that, but also being discouraged from where you are right now, those places where the roles have not evolved to where they are in other countries. And I think it's just very important to reflect back on some of the things that we've heard and seen through the last sessions to know that those places have had long journeys. People have started in small ways, and it may just be a matter of truly taking time to get there. We started off with talking about working with others, and I think in that session, certainly hearing about all of the work that is going on in FIP, a number of different resources and efforts to make sure that there is strong integration across the workforce, pharmaceutical workforce, which absolutely includes pharmacy technicians, other support workers, and that is just so reassuring in that sense. We moved on yesterday to talk about leadership, and I think one of the key messages in that was just understanding that leadership is not dependent on the position that you are in, but is something that can be very much self-determined. Folks were encouraged to develop their own leadership skills and sometimes to step out of your comfort zone and consider what opportunities you might raise your hand for. Recognizing that as over time we're seeing developments where it's not, advancement is not specific to the role that you are in, but really to the competency and that commitment that you bring to the table. And we've certainly seen that throughout all of our sessions. So I think that was great. Today's sessions have also just continued to demonstrate some of that work that we talked about in the leadership session. The digital health session, amazing information, just a true recognition of really what is happening, the advancement of digital health, and some great messaging about the importance of the contribution that pharmacy technicians have to make in that regard, but most importantly, how necessary it is for all of us to make sure that we are staying current with that we're looking to the resources that are available and keeping up with where our patients are going in that regard. I think that was an important message. And then this last session, just some incredible different possibilities that are out there. I'm sure that many of you did feel quite inspired by the number of very different roles that pharmacy technicians and others are taking on. And again, one of the key messages that we saw in today's session was also that of this working together and a seamless team approach in some cases. So I think that that's a message we want to make sure we take forward. I am going to, at this time, ask Ian Bates to join me and make a few comments to the group. Ian, I introduced yesterday. Those of you that are not aware, Ian is the director of the Global Pharmacy Observatory for FIP, as well as the director for the Workforce Development Hub. He has been working with the pharmacy technician group from the beginning, over 10 years ago now, and certainly providing great leadership and support in terms of our efforts to advance the pharmacy technician workforce, and particularly how we can do that as a part of FIP. And so, Ian, I am going to turn it over to you, and would welcome if you're able to just provide for the group some of your thoughts about how we continue to do the work that we have started, and particularly how we take advantage of the support from FIP to move our work forward.
Thank you, Susan. I can't hope to match the eloquence of yourself and Tamara and all the other speakers I heard today. So I'll keep it brief, because I suspect people now are so full of enthusiasm and excitement they want to go off and do things. So let's have a look at where we are. We've probably just had one of the largest technicians meeting together. I know the Association of Pharmacy Technicians hold very frequent and hugely popular European meetings, but I think from a totally international perspective, this is probably the largest crowd we've ever gathered together to talk about these big, important topics. And what a great program. An exciting program, all of which I think we can describe as somewhat visionary in the approaches being made. And that can only be a good thing. It's certainly a good thing for your patients, I think, and it's a good thing for healthcare systems. The Pharmacy Advisory Committee, which FIP established formally a couple of years ago, has proven to be a success. And it's a success because of activity. And those of you who know me well know that I like activity. I like doing things. Occasionally I like talking about things, but not so much. Doing things is what we need to do. And I'm extremely excited by the amount of activity which the FIP has initiated and is pushing through. Some of them may not seem quite so patient critical, so there's a big work stream going on about communications, advocacy, outreach through websites and things, but actually it's pretty critical to the development of the profession, actually. And that's from an FIP perspective, that's a really important piece of work. And it allows opportunity for the support workforce to have a major global voice, working in partnership, working in conjunction with all the other major organizations, such as EAPT, for example. That can be an influential voice. It can be a voice we can take directly to WHO, for example. There are work streams looking at education and development, certainly linked with my favorite subject at the moment, which is competency-based education and training. It's critically important if we want to maintain this impetus for the profession. And I'm really looking forward to helping shape the outcomes of that particular piece of work. And of course, the scopes of practice work, which I think you have been talking about today, for example. I love that title, Doing Things That We Didn't Know You Were Doing, or I'm paraphrasing. But yeah, that's hugely important as well, which is part of outreach and is part of advocacy and part of getting the message out there. So what can I say except congratulations? Marwan has been completely influential, providing that sort of backroom leadership, which I'm so proud of. You know, pushing people from behind, making sure they get up there in front, not hogging the limelight. That's exactly the sort of leadership we need. Give it to the experts and make sure we support the experts. That's what FIP does so very well, I think. So thank you, Marwan, for all your help. Susan, of course, always inspiring. And of course, has got one of the world's most beautiful Canadian accents ever. If you ever left the profession, Susan, think about taking up a job in radio. You've got a superb radio voice. Whereas I've what's known as a radio face. People just don't like looking at me, but maybe hearing me is better. I ought to turn my video off, maybe. Joking aside, let me give you a parting message. And the parting message is the development goals. The FIP development goals were developed for the sole purpose of pushing us all forward, all of us. Okay, I'll say it one more time. The goals are there for all of us. And I'm looking forward to the next stage of development within FIP of the PTAC. Many of whom on this call are extremely influential in that. I can't hope to name everyone by name. Kathy comes to mind. I can't see her anywhere on my screen at the moment, but Kathy is instrumental. Many others. Please forgive me if I don't mention your name. There's too many of you. There's so many leaders stepping up to the mark now with this. But the goals are where the action is at globally. Advancing pharmaceutical care, advancing education and training, advancing the science behind all the medicines that we use. So we will be thinking hard very soon. In fact, I've already started the ball rolling about what comes next. And I think the PTAC team, the advisory committee team, are going to be thinking very, very hard about what comes next as a global step forward from this particular position we're on. I encourage all of you on the call, all of you, to stay engaged, to stay in contact, and come with us on this new journey. Okay, super good. Thanks a lot, Susan. I can fade away into the background now.
Thank you. Wonderful parting words. And with that, again, thank you to everyone who has participated. And I echo what Ian says. Please do join us on the journey. Share the presentations. They are all recorded for you to share with your colleagues so that others also become informed and aware of the amazing possibility that we have ahead of us. So thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, evening. Sleep if that's where you are. Thank you so much for now. Bye.